When Justin Bieber was 15 years old, he signed a record deal that would make him one of the biggest stars on the planet. But before the fame, before the sold-out stadiums, before the world knew his name, there was a weekend. A weekend in 2009 that Justin has never fully explained. A weekend he spent alone with Diddy. No parents, no managers, no cameras, just a teenage boy and one of the most powerful men in the music industry. The footage exists. 48 hours that were supposed to launch a mentorship. But the studio engineer who was there says it was something else entirely. Something darker. Something that changed Justin forever. This isn't speculation. This is testimony. And once you hear it, you'll understand why Justin broke down so many times. Why he couldn't explain his pain. And why, years later, he still flinches when Diddy's name is mentioned. The engineer had worked in the music industry for over 20 years. He'd seen child stars come and go. Some made it, most didn't. But he'd never seen anything like the way Diddy pursued Justin Bieber. It started in early 2009. Justin was 13, just a kid from Canada with a YouTube channel and a dream. Usher discovered him, signed him, and brought him into the industry. But Usher wasn't the only one watching. Diddy saw the videos too, and he saw something else. Potential. Not just musical talent, but malleability. A blank slate. A kid who was hungry, eager to please, and completely unprotected. Diddy reached out immediately. Publicly, he called it mentorship, a chance to guide the next generation. But privately, according to the engineer, Diddy referred to Justin as the project. The engineer was hired to work on what was supposed to be a collaboration session. Diddy and Justin were going to record a track together, maybe shoot some content, build hype. It was framed as a career opportunity, a blessing. Justin's team was thrilled. His mother, Patty, was hesitant but ultimately agreed. Diddy was a legend, a mogul, someone who could open doors. She trusted that her son would be safe. She had no reason not to. The session was scheduled for a weekend in early 2009 at Diddy's private studio in Atlanta. Justin flew in alone. No Usher, no Scooter Braun, no parental supervision. Just a 15-year-old kid walking into a mansion he'd only seen in music videos. The engineer arrived early to set up. Diddy was already there, pacing, energized, talking about how this weekend was going to be legendary. He kept saying Justin was special, that he saw himself in the kid, that he was going to teach him things no one else could. The engineer didn't think much of it at the time. Industry people talk like that. Everything is legendary. Everything is special. But then Justin arrived, and the energy shifted. Justin walked in with his suitcase, his backpack, his nervous smile. He looked younger than 15. Small, uncertain. Diddy greeted him like a king welcoming a prince. Hugged him, told him he was family now. Told him this weekend would change his life. And then, almost immediately, Diddy dismissed everyone. The engineer was told to leave the main studio, to set up in the control room and stay there unless called. No lingering, no small talk, no interaction with Justin. It was a strange request, but the engineer complied. He was being paid well, and he knew better than to ask questions. For the first few hours, things seemed normal. Music played, voices echoed, laughter drifted through the hallway. But as the night went on, the atmosphere changed. The music stopped, the laughter faded, and engineers started hearing things that didn't sit right. Conversations that felt too intimate, too personal. Diddy asking Justin about his fears, his insecurities, his relationship with his mother. Probing, testing, gauging how far he could push. The engineer couldn't hear every word, but he heard enough. And what he heard made him uncomfortable. Around midnight, Diddy called the engineer into the main studio. Justin was sitting on a couch, looking exhausted. Diddy was standing over him, hand on his shoulder, talking in a low voice. When the engineer entered, Diddy smiled and said, We're wrapping for the night. Justin's staying here. We'll start fresh tomorrow." The engineer glanced at Justin. The kid looked dazed. Not tired dazed, like he wasn't fully present. The engineer asked if Justin needed anything. Did he answer for him? "He's good. We're good. You can go." The engineer left, but he didn't feel right about it. Something was off, so he stayed in the parking lot, watched the house from a distance, and around 2 a.m., he saw something that still haunts him. Diddy and Justin walking through the backyard. Justin stumbling slightly, like he was drunk or drugged. Diddy guiding him, arm around his shoulder, leading him toward a separate building. A guest house. The lights went on inside, and they stayed on for hours. The engineer didn't know what happened in that guest house. He didn't see, he didn't record, but he knows what he felt. Dread. A deep, sickening dread that something terrible was happening and he was powerless to stop it. The next morning, the engineer returned to the studio. Justin was already there, sitting alone in the control room, staring at nothing. He looked hollow. His eyes were red. His hands were shaking. The engineer tried to talk to him, asked if he was okay. Justin just nodded, didn't say a word. Diddy walked in moments later, all smiles, all energy, talking about how great last night was, how connected they were, how Justin was going to be a star. But Justin didn't react. He just sat there, vacant, like a part of him had been removed. They recorded for a few hours. Or rather, Diddy recorded. Justin barely participated. He sang when told, moved when directed, but there was no life in him, no spark. He was going through the motions like a puppet. That afternoon, Diddy posted a video online. It's still out there if you know where to look. Diddy and Justin, sitting together, Diddy's arm around him. Diddy saying, "Me and Justin, we're spending 48 hours together. It's gonna be crazy, but I can't tell you what we're doing. That's between us." And then he looks at Justin and says, "Right, little man?" Justin just nods, barely smiles, looks directly at the camera for a split second, and in that moment, the engineer swears he saw fear. Not excitement, not gratitude, fear. The video ends. Diddy laughs, and Justin looks away. By the end of the weekend, Justin was different, quieter, more guarded. He left the studio without saying goodbye to anyone. Just grabbed his bag and walked out. The engineer never saw him again. Not in person, but he watched Justin's career explode, watched him become a global superstar, and he watched him fall apart. The breakdowns, the erratic behavior, the depression, the substance abuse, the times Justin broke down crying in interviews and couldn't explain why. The engineer watched all of it and thought about that weekend, about the guest house, about the look in Justin's eyes, and he wondered, what did he do to him? Years later, the engineer tried to speak out. He reached out to journalists, blogs, anyone who would listen, but no one wanted the story. Diddy was too powerful. Justin was too protected, and without hard evidence, it was just an allegation, a theory, a rumor that could destroy careers. So the engineer stayed quiet. Until now, because recently, other stories have started surfacing. Other young artists who spent time with Diddy. Other mentorships that left scars. And the pattern is too clear to ignore. But before he could fully understand what he witnessed, the engineer needed to piece together what happened after that weekend. He started tracking Justin's career more closely, watching interviews, reading between the lines, looking for signs, and he found them everywhere. In 2013, Justin's behavior became increasingly erratic. The infamous and Frank House incident, getting carried up the Great Wall of China by bodyguards, showing up hours late to concerts, abandoning a pet monkey in Germany. The media called it ego, arrogance, the spoiled behavior of a teen idol who got too famous too fast. But the engineer saw something else. He saw someone spiraling, someone trying to numb pain they couldn't articulate, someone acting out because they'd lost control of their own narrative. Then came 2014, the DUI arrest in Miami, the egging incident, the assault allegations. Justin's mugshot went viral. That dead-eyed stare, that forced smirk, the engineer recognized that look. It was the same look Justin had in the studio that morning after the guest house. Hollow, performing, disconnected from himself. The world mocked him, made memes, called him Brad. But the engineer wondered if anyone was asking why. Why a kid who'd been so sweet, so grateful, so full of joy had turned into this. What breaks a person that completely? The engineer started digging deeper. He found old interviews where Justin would suddenly shut down when asked about his early career. Moments where his smile would freeze, where he'd change the subject quickly, almost frantically. In one interview from 2015, a radio host asked Justin about his mentors in the industry. Justin listed several names: Usher, Scooter, his vocal coach. But when the host said, "What about Diddy? Didn't you guys have a close relationship early on?" Justin's face changed. For just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Then he laughed it off, said, "Yeah, Diddy's cool. We don't really talk anymore," and moved on. But the engineer heard what Justin didn't say. The tension in his voice, the way his hands clenched, the way he looked away from the camera. Then in 2016, Justin canceled the rest of his Purpose tour. Depression, his team said. Exhaustion. He needed time to heal. He disappeared from the public eye for months. When he came back, he was different, more religious, talking about faith, about redemption, about wanting to be a better person. He married young, started going to therapy, talking openly about his mental health struggles. But even then, he never named the source of his trauma, never pointed fingers, never said what or who broke him. And the engineer understood why. Because in the music industry, silence is survival. Speaking out is career suicide. And Justin had been trained from that very first weekend to stay quiet, to protect the powerful, to blame himself. The engineer also discovered something disturbing. He started looking into other young artists who'd been mentored by Diddy over the years. And he found a pattern. They all had similar stories. Promises of guidance, private time, isolation from their teams, and then afterward personality changes, substance abuse, mental health crises. Some recovered, some didn't. One artist, whose name the engineer won't reveal for legal reasons, told him off the record about a similar experience. A weekend retreat, a guest house, hours that disappeared, and a warning. If you ever talk about this, no one will believe you. And even if they do, it won't matter. I'll destroy you. That artist never released another album, left the industry entirely, and now works under a different name in a different field, trying to forget. The engineer also learned about the NDAs. Every young artist who worked closely with Diddy had to sign them. Pages and pages of legal language that essentially said, you can't talk about what you see, what you experience, or what happens behind closed doors. And if you do, you'll lose everything. Your career, your money, your reputation. These weren't standard industry agreements. They were weapons, tools of control, ways to ensure that no matter what happened, the truth would stay buried. And for years, it worked. Because who would believe a teenager over a mogul? Who would risk their entire future to speak out against someone with that much power, that many lawyers, that much influence? But the engineer kept finding cracks in the facade. In 2020, Justin released a song called Lonely. The lyrics gutted him. Everybody knows my name now, but something about it still feels strange. Feels like looking in a mirror, trying to steady yourself, and seeing somebody else. And then the most haunting line, what if you had it all, but nobody to call? Maybe then you'd know me. 'Cause I've had everything, but no one's listening. And that's just lonely. The engineer listened to that song on repeat because he heard what Justin was really saying. That fame didn't save him. Success didn't heal him. And no matter how much he achieved, he was still that 15-year-old kid, alone in a guest house, with no one to call for help. The engineer tried one more time to go public. He reached out to a documentary filmmaker he knew, someone who specialized in exposing industry corruption. He shared everything: the timeline, the observations, the witnesses, the pattern. The filmmaker was interested, started making calls, doing research, but 3 weeks later, he called the engineer back and said, "I can't touch this. My legal team says we'd be sued into oblivion. And even if we won, no network would air it. Diddy's too connected. This story dies here." The engineer felt something break inside him. Because if even the people whose job it is to tell difficult truths won't touch this, what hope is there for justice? That's when he realized something. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It's designed to protect power, to silence victims, to make speaking out so costly, so dangerous, so futile that most people never even try. And the ones who do, they're discredited, destroyed, or ignored. The engineer thought about all the people who'd seen something, knew something, suspected something, but stayed quiet because they didn't want to lose their jobs, their access, their place in the machine. And he realized he was one of them. He'd watched a child be led into darkness and did nothing. He'd prioritized his paycheck over someone's safety. He'd been complicit, and that guilt would follow him forever. But something changed recently. Other powerful figures in the industry started falling. Accusations that were once dismissed as conspiracy theories were suddenly being taken seriously. Investigations were opened. Arrests were made. And the engineer thought, maybe it's time. Maybe now, people are finally ready to listen. Maybe now, the wall of protection around certain names is starting to crack. So he's speaking now, not with proof that would hold up in court. He doesn't have video evidence. He doesn't have a confession, but he has his testimony, his observations, his conscience, and he's adding his voice to the growing chorus of people saying, "We saw something, we knew something, and we stayed silent for too long." The engineer doesn't know exactly what happened in that guest house, but he knows this. Justin Bieber went in as a kid and came out as something else, something broken, and Diddy walked away untouched, unpunished, free to do again. The engineer carries that guilt every day, the guilt of knowing and doing nothing, of prioritizing his job over a child's safety, of being complicit in a system that chews up young talent and spits out trauma. He's speaking now not for redemption, but for accountability, because Justin deserves that, and so do the others, the ones who couldn't speak, the ones who didn't survive, the ones who are still trapped in the machine, too scared to break free. This isn't just about Diddy. It's about an industry that enables predators, that turns a blind eye to abuse because the music is too profitable. The brand is too big. The lawsuits are too expensive. It's about a culture that worships power and ignores pain, that celebrates success and buries secrets. And it's about the cost of fame, the price young stars pay when they're thrown into a world that sees them as products, not people. Justin Bieber survived, barely, but his story isn't over, and neither is the truth. Because the more people speak out, the harder it becomes to deny, the harder it becomes to protect the predators, and the closer we get to justice. Not just for Justin, but for every young artist who trusted the wrong person, who believed the promises, who walked into a mansion and came out changed. This is their story, and it's time the world listened.